Welcome one and welcome all. I am Oluchi Enobong and this is Jasiri. But I'm not the only one in the studio right here. I have two very beautiful ladies that will help me break down to this topic. But first, I like to start by saying, if I were to be in the jungle, I would like to be a squirrel.
Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to Jasiri. My name is Eniola Alawiye, but most people call me Ernie. I'm a media and communications practitioner, a mom, and talking about being an animal. I don't know, maybe a cheetah? Don't judge me, please.
That's quite interesting. Hi everyone, my name is Sheila Ojei and I am a corporate creative, and in the animal kingdom, I think I would be an eagle.
An eagle.
An eagle.
Oh, nice.
You like to take us from afar.
Right.
All right, so today's episode is all about a toxic workplace and how best to handle it. We're also going to be talking about sexual harassment, you know, and we'll also have a guest.
whole lot, yeah.
Especially when it comes to African women. We know we've all faced, I have my own personal stories. I have
I do.
stories of friends
Do you?
who have
I
been
do
through
too,
it.
yes, definitely.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that. We'll be having a guest who will be taking us through how best to handle toxic workplace, especially if we have to go back there. You know, there's sometimes like the pandemic has happened that we know a lot of us had to work from home, and some of us are like, oh, thank God. But you know, now we have to go back to physical workplace. So we're like,
So I have to
we
get
have
back
enough
to
land.
this space.
yeah, but let's give you a few facts. You know, there's some things we need to understand. Now, did you know that working in such hostile environment can lead to high risk of cardiovascular diseases? It can also lead to workplace injuries and psychological disorders that can lead to mental health problems. Now, these are some of the reasons why it is important to address the issue of toxic workplaces. So let's do just that.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Jasiri. Now, today is all about the toxic workplace, and our guest is Tinuke Bosun-Okusaga. Now, she is a management consultant with over 15 years experience in human resources. She has worked in the financial services sector. She has also worked in the management, education, and consulting. Now, our expertise is in workplace capability assessment, as well as performance management, organization design, career planning, and talent management. We have in our midst Tinuke. Many thanks.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to this discussion with all enthusiasm. Let's go.
All right, so Tinuke, I mean, we're talking about a toxic workplace and a little bit about sexual harassment. What do you think makes a workplace toxic?
All right, thank you very much. So there are some key signs to look out for when you're in a work environment and you're feeling uncomfortable. Number one is when you're in a place where there's a lot of jittering, gossips, you know, people talk behind one another, say bad stuff about this person, say to the next person, and people have opinions about you, and you don't even have an idea people are saying talking about you. So when there's a lot of backbiting, do you know that girl, that guy? That's a sign. Another sign is when you have cliques. You know, you don't belong to a circle, you know, and then the projects come and it goes to a particular clique and you're left out just because you don't talk like them, you don't go to parties with them. You know, when you find people like that, such in an organization, that's another sign of toxicity. Another thing that comes in mind when you look about when you see a toxic work environment is when it comes to performance reviews, all right, there is no objectivity in the process. Okay. It's all about who is in the boss good books, who does the boss like. And you see at the end of the review, when it comes time for promotion, people are being promoted based on somebody who, sits around the boss more. And you're doing your job, but because you don't just dance around the boss, dance around the power brokers, then you get the wrong hand of the stick. All right, so those little signs here and there, some of them may be subtle at times. You know, when a job comes and they don't give it to you, they give it to somebody else, and you can't explain why. All right, so those subtle signs, you know, just gives you a red flag that I may be in the wrong place.
Wow, that's a whole lot to take. I mean, is it even possible for those kind of things to be missing? Because when you're talking about gossiping or saying something bad about someone. You might just be sharing with another person certain things or behavioral patterns you've seen in the person that's quite negative. Would that also pass for you enabling a toxic workplace?
So in healthy organizations, when things like that happen, I've been in an organization where somebody comes to somebody and said, do you know this person is this, is that? And the person, you know what, hold it. Let me call the person.
Right.
Could you just go over what you just told me?
Some people might not handle it well.
Well, that kills that kind of spirit because you may just be lying. So if it is true,
Then you
and we
have
want
a
to,
problem.
and we want to help the person improve, you know, give them the direct feedback. Don't say it behind them, and somebody may use it against them without even getting the facts. So bring it to the bear. Let's discuss it. Let's help the person improve.
So as an employee, when you notice this kind of trait, what is the next thing to do, the right next thing to do?
All right. So I did a write-up on LinkedIn about 3-4 weeks back, and it went viral. A lot of people picked on it, and people were sharing their experiences and saying, oh, thank you for bringing it to the fore. We hope somebody in our organization reads this.
There's always someone who needs to get that message.
So part of the recommendation is, first of all, if you find out you have a policy that protects you, all right? Most standard organization, leading practice, best practice, you always have a workplace policy on bullying, on harassment, on toxic work environment. Go to your HR department and say, this is what I'm facing, this is what I'm experiencing, and I think there's a policy. How do we deal with this? If you find yourself in a situation where your HR is not effective, because some people said, even HR too is being bullied, okay? And HR wants to protect her job, all right? If that is the case, I always say, I mean, while I was working for one of the big fours, we have a coaching system where you choose somebody who is about 2 or 3 levels ahead of you, and the person is your coach. So somebody who you can confide in the organization who is at a higher level. Go to the next level and look for somebody at the higher level and express what is going on and share your thoughts on what is going on. If that doesn't help also, then plan your exit.
In this economy,
Plan your mental well-being, your physical well-being.
Should be priority.
Somebody said right now, people are looking for well-being and not well-paid.
yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, even me, I'm like, but in this economy, there are bills to be paid.
Right.
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing you've brought that up, about your well-being. So my question is, how does working in a toxic workplace affect your personal life?
All right. I mean, when she told me about this show about 2-3 days ago, I was doing a little bit of research, and then something jumped at me in one of the articles I was reading. And the person said, do you know, the bad part about working in a toxic environment is that it doesn't stay in the workplace, it goes home with you.
it does.
Absolutely. You start taking it out on your hobby if you have a spouse. You take it out on your children. You don't sleep well at night because you're having nightmares about the next day in the office, about a project, and you don't know what to expect. So certainly your entire life is put on a hold because you're working in it. And that was why I said plan your exit. Because we've had people slump in the workplace. We've had people sleep and don't wake up. If you research or dig deep into all these causes, you might find what some of the remote causes is because a person works in an environment that is very unhealthy. And planning your exit doesn't mean resign. It means start looking. Give your
other options.
Absolutely.
Right.
I have more questions.
I know, right?
I have so many questions.
I
but,
mean, with
it's
even
just-
real life stories.
Yeah, the real life stories parts is I find, yeah, but anyway, this is a good place to pause for us because we're going to be having a little bit more conversations after the break. Yeah, I know we can continue talking and talking, but this is a good place for us to pause. When Jasiri continues, we are going to go into one major issue, and that is sexual harassment and especially toxic workplace for women. Yes, women, because we're all women, right?
Yes.
So do stay with us and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jasiri. Now, we made a finding that says people who work in toxic workplaces report decreased productivity, anxiety, depression, poor working strategies, addiction issues, and developing lifestyle-related illnesses like diabetes. That sounds like a lot. It is. Now, my major question is, in a situation where an employee is experiencing, this kind of situation and they report to the HR and the HR's hands are tied, maybe in a situation where they're dealing with an employee and a superior, everybody would naturally want to look out for themselves first. So what then do that kind of person do? What can they really do to help, the victim? Because I think people who go through things like this are victims.
All right. So thank you, Annie. Like I said earlier, when you don't have policies, to protect employees, other measures most organizations put in place are from time to time to run a survey, like an engagement survey, employee engagement survey. So generally, we want to have feedback from the workforce, what they think about the culture, what they think about their bosses, what they think about how we do things here. That is on one side. Another thing organizations do is to deploy what you call a whistleblowing policy. So under a whistleblowing policy, you are anonymous. So you can give direct feedback. I'm being haunted, I'm being, my boss, is unbearable. You say everything you feel under that policy, and then you go and submit it, and nobody knows who submitted what. So most organizations pick those things up and they dig further to know what's going on in the environment, in the organization. Aside from that, from time to time, during the performance review exercise, organizations also use what we call a 360 degrees assessment. So apart from doing the normal appraisal where I assess your work, I also hear what people are saying about you. It forms part of your evaluation. All right, so it's a 360, meaning yourself, your superior, if you have somebody reporting to you, and your peers, they all feel that thing and speak about you. So that also goes into your performance review process. So all those other measures are to put a check in place where the policy doesn't work. All those other are supposed to shed light on what is going on in the organization and perhaps improve the culture.
That's quite interesting. So my question is this now. So it's because, we're sharing experiences, right? Yeah. But it's not really my experience. Now, I had a friend who basically, she loved her job, really loved the job. She had so many good things to say about the company. But then there was a superior that was hired. And then, when the superior joined the company, everything changed. And then, she went from someone who really loved her job to not being as productive anymore, to looking for ways to sort of, she couldn't quit because she had bills to pay. But, looking for ways to sort of keep herself motivated, right? And I found it very interesting when she told me the story, and I was like, what went wrong? And she was like, oh, it's this person that was hired. Now, are there instances where just one bad hire can change your workplace and change the culture?
Absolutely. It doesn't take more than one person, especially if the person is a senior leadership position, a position of influence. The person can determine a whole lot about the culture of that environment, of that workplace. When somebody comes in from a different culture, that is why organizations need to do everything to protect their culture. If you say our culture, every organization has values, core values, which is linked to the culture. Respect, integrity, teamwork, friendliness. We all have these beautiful things, and we have it on plaques, on our walls. But in reality, how many of your leaders, because the body really lies on leadership, the culture of an environment really lies on the leadership. But how many of your leaders truly live these values, you're talking about? And somebody can come from somewhere and totally disrupt your values, your culture. And people are wondering, is it the same place we've been working all through the years? And I think most times organizations close their eyes, to things like that, because the person is bringing in money. Yes, right. We are meeting our budget, we are meeting our target. But the truth of the matter is that in the long term, in the long run, do you want to sacrifice your best employees? Do you want to sacrifice an organization that has been existent for a while for a temporary bonus,
Yeah.
temporary profitability. How far can that person take your organization when you lose all your good hands? Because the truth is people start thinking of how to get out of the organization. And at the end of the day, the organization pays the price and not that person.
Now you just made mention of organization and people leaving. That's people quitting. I have this friend of mine who her workplace was not so bad until, just like Sheila said, somebody came into the picture, and it became really terrifying for her. She was having nightmares. She'll wake up at night screaming. Every morning she was literally in tears going to work. She wasn't looking forward to going to that same office environment, and her spouse had to tell her to quit. And at some point, she looked like, is quitting really the only option? Because if everybody quits, that person is still there, and the toxic environment is still
And
there.
more people would come
and more
in
people would
and
come, another
experience the
cycle.
same thing.
Right. So is quitting the only or the right option in scenarios like that?
All right, I mean, quitting may be the last resort after you've explored all the options available. You know, like I said earlier on, you've explored, is there any policy that protects me? If there is none, is there somebody else I can talk to, I can confide in, who has some influence? If that doesn't happen, and then it falls back to, what do I do? Do I want to be a victim in this work environment? And then do I want to sacrifice my well-being, both physical and mental? I mean, you have situations where people say that, well, I'm sleeping at home, I'm thinking of, you know, dreading going to work in the next day. That is becoming schizophrenic. Whether you like it or not, it becomes a mental, I mean, there has been a series of mental issues in the workplace in recent times. Mental issues. So how do you sacrifice all that for the pay? A healthy person can still make money, but when you're unhealthy, nobody wants to hire you.
You won't be as effective.
You need to make the tough decision.
Wow, this has been a really, really interesting conversation talking about dealing with a toxic workplace. Now, we also understand that you may want to quit, but you obviously have bills to pay. I mean, you have to put a roof over your head, you have to put food on the table for family members. But you know what? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll still have more for you on the show.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa first.
Welcome back. This episode has been so interesting. We've been talking about dealing with a toxic workplace. But now we're going into eye candy. And no, it's not the type of eye candy that you're thinking about, Ernie.
Oh, you have to be me, really? Just say. Okay, let's have it.
All right. So I came across this quote, and I actually absolutely love it. It says, "Soon you will realize that many people will love the idea of you, but will lack the maturity to handle the reality of you." And this is by Raina Bidi.
Guess what? I love it. I wasn't expecting it, but I love it. And I have a lot to say about it. Now, the first thing is, I know this is not, it has nothing to do with what we're discussing today, but it's about men having this idea of, I want an independent woman, a working class woman, a woman who can stand on her feet, do this, do that. So you see that and you eventually...
And it has a whole lot to do with what we are talking about.
Okay, well, yes. So you see that kind of woman, you probably get married to that kind of woman, and there are sacrifices that comes with everything. So it comes to you sacrificing what you have to sacrifice, then it becomes a problem. So you like the idea of an independent woman, a go-getter, a this, a that, but you really cannot deal with the realities that comes with it. That is the only thing that is in my head right now.
That's in your head.
Do you know why I said it has a whole
Yeah.
lot to do with what we're saying?
Okay.
Because some people just decide not to like you in a work environment. She's too confident. Who does she think she is? When we are meeting, she's a know-it-all.
And interestingly, those are the things that they like when they interview you.
Exactly.
Those are the things they're looking out for.
Case closed.
And then when
Exactly.
you start working,
You become a threat.
yes.
recover.
So,
And
so
like
some of them, it
like-
might be a reflection of their own their inferiority complex.
Absolutely.
You know, the fact that there's someone who can ooze confidence, who
Absolutely.
can ooze maturity, and they
Having to
wish
do
they
so
could be like that. So the next
Absolutely.
thing is they try to bring you down.
Absolutely.
I mean, they try to bring you down to their level. If they can't meet you up there and they see you up there as a threat, as you've said, then yeah, they need to do all they can to bring you down. So for me, that's what this is portraying.
They make the workplace toxic.
I mean,
Topic of the
and I
day.
love that we still brought it back to the topic. But honestly, you guys have said exactly the thoughts I've had in mind. For some reason, the trend is that you want to bamba thread that keeps coming to my head. Let's listen to this conversation because it's that thing. You want to, because it's the thing of, you know, a lot of times we like the idea of something. A lot of, you know, and the example you gave about being an independent woman, to me, that is one of the, you know, the topmost or career-driven woman, not really being independent, right? It's being a career-driven woman. Or even if you're an entrepreneur, right? So there's a lot of times it's like, oh, I like that. It's very aspiring. But then you realize there's late nights. There is, you know, putting in the extra hours. There is all these things. And to be honest, there is no industry, there is no job that is one is easier than the other.
Exactly.
There is none whatsoever. Everyone has its own uniqueness, right? And its own level of work. So I find that most times people say, I like the idea of this, or I like the idea of being a media personality, but you have to do a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of, you know, so it's all these things that when we now see what the reality is, it's then, you know, people then realize, oh, maybe I don't really like it that much, right? So it's very important for us to be able to get the full picture, like the idea of it, but also love the realities
Exactly,
of it.
and be ready to face the reality. It's been such an interesting moment, but right now we need to wrap things up. But before we get to that, I would like to know, Oluchi, what are you taking away from today's topic, from this conversation?
Oh, well, I'm taking the fact that I need to explore other options. If I'm ever in a toxic workplace, I need to explore other options. I need to have a plan B, basically. I mean, a plan B is very crucial at this point in time before I leave. Because at the end of the day, if I'm the one bringing all the bread at the table and suddenly bread is scarce, my children are my own, people at the top, they're not
know,
going to
right?
find it.
So Sheila, what about you?
So I found it very interesting when Tinuke was saying having somebody above that you can speak to. So before you know, since bread can get scarce, before you quit, I've learned that it's important to have someone that it's above that you can speak to.
Right. I think for me is really the reality of your mental health is priority. It's the most. I mean, we just feel, oh, so how do I take care of the bills? How do I live my life, you know, if I don't work? So I think I don't have a choice. I need to cope. But really, if you are not well mentally, it even affects work. So your mental care, your mental state is really, really important. So please, everyone, I don't know what you might be going through at your workplace, but really you need to prioritize your mental health.
And if there's one thing I want everybody to take, it's just a one-liner. Well-being is better than well-paid.
Right.
Yes.
Well-being is better than well-paid.
Now, sorry, before we leave, how can viewers contact you?
All right, so I manage a consulting outfit called People Plus Consulting. I will share my details with the producer, and then she can share on your available platforms.
On LinkedIn.
Yes.
And your name on LinkedIn is?
Yes, Tinuke Bosun-Okusaga. You can follow me on LinkedIn.
All right, thank you so much, Tinuke Bosun-Okusaga, for joining us on the program today. It's been one of the many interesting conversations we've had on the program. And of course, we always want to wish you the very best and we'll support you in your future
Thank you
endeavors.
very much. I appreciate it.
All right, and then that's how we're wrapping the show for today. Well, thank you so much for joining. And on today's topic, we're talking about dealing with a toxic workplace. Now, don't forget that you don't want to miss the conversation that goes down. But as always, we like to say on the show, be bold,
Be strong, and be a Jasiri woman. See you guys soon.